What if I told you that every single bad decision you have ever made in your life, every wrong turn, every regret, every moment you wish you could take back, was not caused by lack of intelligence, not caused by bad luck, not caused by the wrong people around you, but was caused by one single thing: a mind that was not ready to see clearly. What if the difference between the life you are living right now and the life you have always dreamed of living is not talent, not money, not opportunity, but simply the quality of your thinking in the moments that mattered most? Most people spend their entire lives reacting to situations, reacting to people, reacting to fear, and they call it living. But what if there is another way? What if you could train your mind the same way a Shaolin master trains his body, with discipline, with stillness, with absolute precision, so that when life throws its hardest challenges at you, you do not break, you do not panic, you do not run, you simply see clearly, decide wisely, and move forward with unshakable confidence? Stay with me until the very end, because what I am about to share with you will permanently change the way you think, decide, and live. What if the most powerful weapon you will ever possess in this lifetime is not your strength, not your wealth, not your connections, but the absolute clarity of your own mind? Think about that for one moment. Every single outcome in your life, your relationships, your career, your health, your happiness, every single one of them is the direct result of a decision you made. And every decision you made was the direct result of the quality of your thinking in that moment. Which means, if you can master the quality of your thinking, you can master the quality of your life. It is that simple, and it is that difficult. We live in a world that is deliberately designed to keep you confused. Noise everywhere, notifications everywhere, opinions everywhere. Everyone is telling you what to think, what to feel, what to want, what to fear. And in the middle of all this chaos, you are expected to make decisions. Decisions about your future, decisions about your relationships, decisions about who you are and who you want to become. And most people are making these decisions from a place of pure mental fog. They are reacting instead of thinking. They are feeling instead of seeing. And then they wonder why their life feels like it is going in circles. But here is the truth that most people are never told. Clarity is not a gift. Clarity is a practice. Clarity is something you must build, protect, and maintain every single day of your life. The ancient Shaolin tradition understood something about the human mind that modern psychology is only now beginning to confirm. They understood that the mind and the body are not separate. They are one system. When the body is undisciplined, the mind becomes chaotic. When the body is trained, the mind becomes sharp. When you move with intention, you begin to think with intention. This is not philosophy. This is physiology. This is the science of how human beings actually work. So let us begin at the very foundation. The first thing you must understand is this: your mind is like a mirror. And like any mirror, it can only show you the truth when its surface is clean. When the surface is dirty, covered in dust, smeared with old fingerprints, the reflection it gives you is distorted. You look into it and you think you see reality, but what you are actually seeing is your own confusion, your own fear, your own accumulated pain looking back at you. Most people are making life decisions while looking into a dirty mirror. They think they are seeing the situation clearly. They think they are being rational, but they are not seeing the situation at all. They are seeing their emotional state projected onto the situation. This is one of the most dangerous things a human being can do, and almost all of us do it every single day. The question is not, what should I decide? The question is always, is my mirror clean enough to see this situation as it truly is? Before you make any major decision in your life, before you say yes or no to anything that matters, you must first ask yourself, am I seeing this clearly, or am I seeing this through the lens of my fear, my desire, my ego, or my pain? Because here is what happens when you decide from an unclean state. You make a decision and it feels right in the moment because it matches your emotional state. But your emotional state is temporary, and when that emotional state passes, you look at the decision you made and you do not recognize it. You ask yourself, why did I do that? What was I thinking? And the honest answer is, you were not thinking at all. You were feeling, and you confused feeling for thinking. The Shaolin masters trained for decades specifically to solve this problem. Their physical training, the hours of standing still, the repetitive movements, the controlled breathing, the discipline of the body, all of it was designed to quiet the noise of the mind, because they knew something profound. They knew that the loudest voice inside you is not the voice of wisdom. The loudest voice inside you is the voice of your conditioning, your fear, your survival instinct. Wisdom is quiet, clarity is quiet, and if you cannot get quiet yourself, you will never hear it. Now let us talk about something that will make you deeply uncomfortable, because it should. There are 5 mental poisons that destroy clear thinking. 5 internal enemies that you carry inside you at all times and that are working against you every single moment you are not paying attention to them. These are not abstract philosophical concepts. These are real, observable mental states that you can identify in yourself right now if you are honest enough to look. The first is desire. Not healthy ambition, but the desperate, clinging kind of wanting that makes you do things that are against your own best interest. When you want something too badly, you stop seeing it clearly. You start seeing only what you want to see. You ignore the warning signs. You silence the doubts. You tell yourself stories about why this is the right choice, when deep inside you already know it is not. Desire blinds you by making the future look exactly the way you want it to look, regardless of what the evidence is actually showing you. The second poison is aversion. This is the opposite of desire, but equally destructive. Aversion is when you hate something so strongly, a person, a situation, a memory, that you cannot think clearly about anything connected to it. If you have a deep aversion to failure, you will make decisions based on avoiding failure rather than creating success. If you have a deep aversion to conflict, you will avoid necessary conversations that could save your relationships. Aversion makes you run from things you should be walking toward, and it disguises your running as wisdom. The third poison is restlessness, the inability to be still. The compulsive need to always be doing, always be moving, always be consuming information, entertainment, conversation, stimulation. Restlessness is the enemy of clarity because clarity requires pause. Clarity requires the kind of deep stillness that most modern people have completely forgotten how to access. You cannot think clearly if you cannot sit quietly with your own mind for 5 minutes, and most people cannot. They pick up their phone, they turn on the television, they call someone, anything to avoid the silence, because in the silence they might have to hear the things they have been running from. The fourth poison is laziness of mind, not the laziness of the body, but the deeper, more dangerous laziness of not wanting to think deeply, not wanting to question your own assumptions, not wanting to examine your own beliefs. It is much easier to react than to respond. It is much easier to follow the crowd than to think independently. It is much easier to believe what you have always believed than to sit down and honestly ask yourself, is this actually true? Mental laziness is the reason most people are living someone else's life while thinking it is their own. The fifth and perhaps most crippling poison is doubt, but not the healthy kind of doubt that questions and investigates. This is the paralyzing kind of doubt. The doubt that stops you from acting even when you have enough information. The doubt that makes every decision feel dangerous. The doubt that whispers, what if you are wrong? What if it does not work? What if people judge you? And so you wait, and you wait, and you keep waiting for certainty that will never come, because certainty is not a gift the universe gives before action. Certainty is only given after you have had the courage to move without it. Recognize these 5 poisons inside yourself, not as character flaws, not as reasons to hate yourself, but as patterns, patterns that you can observe, understand, and gradually loosen your grip on. That is how the Shaolin masters worked with the mind, not by fighting it, not by suppressing it, but by seeing it so clearly that its power over you begins to dissolve. Now I want to speak to you about the single most important distinction you will ever make in the area of decision-making. It is the distinction between reaction and response. Reaction is automatic. Reaction is fast. Reaction bypasses your conscious mind and goes directly through your nervous system. Something happens, and immediately, before you have even had time to think, you react. You get angry. You get defensive. You say something you regret. You make a choice from your worst self instead of your best self. Reaction is who you are when you have not done the inner work. Reaction is the undisciplined mind in action. Response is different. Response is deliberate. Response is what happens when you have created enough space between the stimulus and your action to actually think, to actually feel what is true, to actually ask what is wise, to actually consider what kind of person you want to be in this moment. Response is who you are when you have done the work. Response is the disciplined mind in action. The Shaolin teaching here is physical before it is philosophical, because you cannot teach a person about mental discipline by simply talking about it. You must make them experience it in their body first. When a student stands in a horse stance for